Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. I'm S. Maxine Fisher. I'm an author. I love to knit and crochet. I have actually an Etsy store full of Pride-themed items that I'll link in the description box below. And I'm also a full-time case manager, as well as a parent to a beautiful boy who is now 5 months old. So I have a lot to juggle with my full-time job, and I make YouTube videos to help people like me to manage some of the pain points of that type of lifestyle and just be able to live your best life. So today is a Saturday. I am actually in the process of living my best life right now. I am working on a crochet project while not doing the 1,000,001 things that I have not done today. I have paperwork to do. I have my 5-month-old who's out with my wife taking a walk. So right now I am making a chicken. I recently got into crocheting plushies in addition to Pride-themed items, you know, trying to work on some gifts. So I'm going to try to make one of those cute little loaf chickens that I see at all those craft fairs. So meanwhile, I would like to talk with you about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, which has to do with allies, LGBTQ allies, and why it's important to me to be out at work. So let's get into it. If you are a crafter like myself, grab your craft project, because this is probably going to be a longer video. If not, grab a cup of coffee or tea, put me on pause, and I'll be here when you come back. Okay, so let me get started on this chicken. This is just going to be some straight rounds. Well, apparently I don't even crochet straight, but when I do, I carry this awesome little rainbow wallet with me when I go to work. And I want to talk with you about why I usually take this with me or always seem to have some sort of rainbow themed items on my person. And it might not be for the reasons that you think. So first of all, let me tell you guys a story. A couple of years ago in my career, I was an Uber driver, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, because it was before I was a case manager. And I was working for myself through a number of different businesses and doing Uber and Lyft rides while my then fiance was working at a social services center. And as I was picking up a passenger, I get a text from her that just says, "Oh no." And it was just as this woman was getting into my car, and she was clearly agitated. She was coincidentally coming out of the social services center, which can be a really stressful place for many people. And she had 2 of her kids with her. I don't know if that was all her kids, but it definitely felt like it on that day. She was angry, agitated, frustrated, and angry about the fact that when she had hailed the Lyft ride, it told her I was 2 minutes away, and it turned out to be 3 minutes due to the amount of just foot traffic around social services. So needless to say, I was very concerned because whenever somebody gets in your car and is angry, there's definitely the potential that they're going to give you a bad rating or file some kind of complaint because their day was not going the way they expected, like I just described. And her home was about 5 minutes away, and she was trying to get her kids to quiet down and behave themselves or behave the way that she felt that they should behave in an Uber, which honestly I wasn't as concerned about because they were just talking to me. They were just chit-chatting. I would be more concerned if they were spilling water or drinks in my back seat. But their talking really upset her. And so she was telling them to quiet down and be quiet. You're going to get us a bad rating because you can rate your customers as well. And just as we pulled into her neighborhood and tensions were really high, and I was very eager to get this family out of my car and on their way, the little girl points at my dashboard and she says, "What's that?" And I looked where she was pointing, and it was actually a progress flag, which, if you're not familiar with LGBTQ pride flags, is a rainbow flag that has transgender and black and brown stripes combined. So it almost looks like one of those, I think, Puerto Rican flags where it has, you know, the straight stripes of the rainbow and the wedge chevron stripes with the pink, blue, white, black, brown, not in that order because I can't count, stripes. And maybe I'll flash an image of that on the screen right now. So I had a progress flag sitting on my dashboard, and I kind of choked because I didn't want to get a bad rating, and I also just did not feel like having any more, you know, hostility directed toward me as a person who's LGBTQ. So I just took a deep breath and gave her an honest answer. And I said that that flag means that everybody is welcome in this car. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter where you come from or what your relationships are, that everybody is welcome in this car. And like, I felt like just the tension just went out of the air. And she smiled, and her mom smiled. Mom stopped yelling at her, which was really nice. And then they went on their way and rated me 5 stars, but it just turned a really negative experience into a positive one. Part of the reason that I have a progress flag in my Uber is exactly, actually that is the reason, exactly what I just said, that everyone is welcome, because I want everyone to feel comfortable, and everyone deserves to live their best life, not experience discrimination or be told how somebody else thinks that they should live their life based on however short or long interaction that person has with them. It's also because, to me, it's very important not only to be out at work, but to have allies. In 1 second, I'm going to place a stitch marker so I don't lose my place in my crochet, and mark off my first round. I love this little fidget toy. It's one of these pop-pops, and I have 9 rounds to do on this chicken of, you know, just plain rounds, and I will mark off one of those little pops every time I do one. Free crochet tip if you're a crafter. Those things are awesome. I always pick them up at networking events since I work with people who have autism and intellectual disabilities. So it seems like whenever I go to one of our networking events or transition fairs, we get all sorts of little fidget toys to give out. So where was I? I'm talking about the progress flag in my Uber. So this family really just, their whole day turned around when, or at least their whole attitude in that moment turned around when the topic came up of just everybody being welcome. I don't know what kind of day she was having or why my wife said, oh no, because apparently she was having the same sort of day during her social service encounter as extended to walking in my car. But fortunately, I hope that it didn't, you know, did not continue that way, that things kind of picked up for her. But why do I carry a rainbow wallet at work and a progress flag in my car, or rainbow earrings on my person when I'm not wearing these cute ones? Well, let me tell you about some encounters that I have had as an out person. So I am a woman with a wife. That was part of my journey that maybe I'll share in another video, has been with just navigating discrimination myself and trying to find an approach to the world in which I don't feel that I need to be soliciting others' opinions and can benefit from being one member of a very diverse society. Recently, in the last few years, I had to choose a new primary doctor because the person that I was seeing previously was a long ways away. I had moved, you know, they had all my medical records and I had a really good relationship with that provider. So long story short, I ended up bouncing around to a number of different providers. And one thing that I was having at the time was some gynecological issues. You know, I was about to turn 40, just needing some additional support in that area and trying to find a provider who wasn't going to A, blow me off, but B, give me advice that would be intended for somebody who's in a heterosexual relationship or who was, you know, straight. Found it very difficult to find a competent provider, not just friendly, but competent. Meanwhile, my wife and I went to a skating rink for one of our birthdays. I think it was hers because it was in the winter. And I had an accident in a skating rink and some child ran out in front of me. I was not skilled at skating, but especially not at stopping, and ensured that that child was not injured. And I ended up with needing staples in my head because I fell on the ice and had a little head injury. Fortunately, no lasting damage. It was just kind of a superficial cut, but I went back to my doctor a couple weeks later because I was just having a lot of pain. I'm very sensitive and normally have a high pain tolerance, except when it's somewhere that I can't see. So like I had this little injury in the back of my head that was in my imagination coming open and going to spill all my guts and brains everywhere, and really it was just a scab that had kind of worked its way loose. Sorry, maybe I should cut this because, well, I promised I wasn't going to edit this video. I also don't want to be TMI. I had pain in my injury and went back to the doctor. The doctor I had seen last wasn't there, so I saw the PA, and this guy comes out and he's spent a whole 15 minutes with me explaining the fact that I had just a little scab that had worked its way loose and was moving around when my hair moved, and it was causing me some discomfort, and no, I was not going to lose all the brains out of my head out of that little scratch. But it's very rare that I find a doctor who's going to sit down and just explain things to you without being condescending in a way that the average layperson can understand their own medical care. So that was wonderful. And as he was, putting some alcohol or hydrogen peroxide or something on my area to clean it, I noticed that he had an equality pin on his lanyard with his name tag. For those of you who don't know what an equality pin is, it is just a blue, like a little blue square with a yellow equal sign, and it stands for LGBTQ equality, marriage equality, being able to treat everyone with the same level of respect, especially those who are in a minority, sexual gender minorities, and experiencing discrimination. And I kind of looked and I realized I saw like a little rainbow pin, and I think it was like a little bisexual heart. I was like, oh, okay. And like that just made me feel really comfortable. I don't know if that provider, and to this day, I don't know if that provider was announcing their own, their own identity, or simply positioning themselves as an ally. And that's the latter is how I read that kind of flair. But I ended up going back to that provider the next time I had an injury or a need, and just kind of scheduling with them because they were really available as a physician assistant as opposed to an MD. And now they are not only my primary, but the primary for my wife and family. So it meant a lot to me to find somebody who took the time to openly say, I'm with you. I see you, I recognize you, and I respect you regardless of who you are. Everybody is welcome in this office. Everybody is welcome in this car. And that's something that we take for granted, as should be the fact. When you go to receive a professional service, whether that's medical care, mental health care, an Uber ride, buying a cake, buying your lunch, getting a chicken sandwich, whatever it may be, you expect to be treated the same as the next person in line. And the fact is that I feel like that doesn't always happen, because whether people express it or not, there is something called implicit bias. Implicit bias means that you bring your set of beliefs to every interaction without realizing it, and without realizing how your behavior changes. So even though we all kind of try to keep a poker face in our professional lives and don't react negatively or positively to expressions of who somebody is or what they like or what they prefer, we still have that sense of, ooh, I think that's great, I think that's awesome, or ooh, why would you do that? Ooh, you like chocolate ice cream? That's kind of nasty. That sounds like a trivial example, but if somebody was to tell you, tonight I'm having nothing but canned peas for dinner, what would your reaction be? If you're somebody who really likes canned peas and that's something that you do all the time, you might be like, oh yeah, you know what, so am I, that's awesome. Whereas I think most of us You know what, I will speak for myself. As they say in AA, I'll keep it on the eye. If somebody said they are having nothing but canned peas for dinner, I would be like, oh, okay, all right, good on you, enjoy. Or maybe if I felt like I was concerned about it, I'm like, you put some butter on those peas? Because I hate canned peas. That is one of my least favorite foods. Now that is an example of something that's not really a matter of great importance to anybody in society. What kind of vegetable you like or don't like. I think it's universally accepted that some people like their vegetables and other people don't, or you may have favorites and preferences, and we're all allowed to have, you know, those preferences. But when it comes to somebody's life or somebody's identity, then it hits harder when somebody expresses that negativity toward you. And in many cases, especially if somebody has a strong opinion, it can really be perceived as hatred, even though maybe the person holding that opinion doesn't feel that they hate a person that matches that profile. Just the act of profiling them with something that you hold a negative opinion about is hurtful and can be painful to experience. So back to why I carry a rainbow wallet at work. I work with folks who have autism and intellectual disabilities. And in that population, I think that's something that we can agree in society has not always been viewed favorably. Believe it or not, even though it's something that you're born with. It's something that is part of who you are. And in the past, I remember like my mother-in-law sharing stories about, you know, family members who were born with some kind of physical disability where they needed to hide it or felt the need to hide it because they would get bullied at school because they wore a brace on their leg or because they had braces on their teeth. And that's just one kind of visible disability. Historically, people with intellectual disabilities experience that kind of bullying and othering at a very young age. We've all heard some negative names that have been used for people with IDD. Some that were even used by the clinical professions, you know, regarding people's development, people's mental age, and that stigma has actually caused people to change their language, just as happens with many minorities. I think the shelf life of names and clinical terms is very short because they quickly get misused and used in hurtful ways. When we get older, people who are neurodivergent, who have any kind of intellectual disability, or on the autism spectrum, you name it, still face stigma in society. Society views folks as being maybe not able to live a full life as they would perceive a full life. Having relationships with other people that we in society view as like, that's key to having a full life, is loving who you love, is being able to have a family and maybe even have kids if that's your choice to have kids. Being able to choose where you live, whether you want to live with your family of origin, if you want to have your own place, probably not living in an institution. But historically, people with, you know, mental and intellectual disabilities, people on the autism spectrum, were almost by default placed in institutions, or their families were encouraged to place them in institutions with the perception that these folks can't function in society, or that their families should have to, you know, provide the level of support that they need to remain in their homes. That perception has definitely changed in current decades, and it's no longer standard practice to institutionalize anybody with any kind of disability by default. And yet the perception remains that there should be institutions available for all of these people, as if they are something other than my friend, my family member, my neighbor who is neurodivergent and near and dear to my heart. That being said, I work with folks who have been marginalized, and there is an intersection, as in all of humanity, with those who are, maybe have a disability or a medical condition or a mental health disorder, those who have, an intellectual disability or autism, those who are heterosexual, bisexual, gay, straight, transgender, bigender, non-binary, you name it, that being, under the LGBTQIA plus spectrum. And I want those folks to know and to be able to see right off that I am not only an ally as their case manager, helping them find supports to live their best life with a disability, but I'm also an ally in terms of any other aspect of their lives that is different from others, that they may have just experienced discrimination about in the past, that I'm a safe person and I value you and I value your difference and I value you as a human, as a fellow human, and can relate. So anyway, that is a very long story about why I carry a rainbow wallet at work. I just wanted to highlight today why it's so important to have allies and feel safe with others. One more story I want to share, and maybe I will make another video about it, about some of my experiences in feeling marginalized, not being out at work, and being somebody who is closeted just kind of by default, and what it was like to work under those conditions. So if you are watching my channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. Like this video if this is something that you would typically watch, that you enjoy, because that will help YouTube to push more of these types of videos to you, and it'll also help push my videos to people like yourself who enjoy my content. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more content and you want to see the next video I post, including talking about some of my experiences at work. If you are somebody who is trying to be out at work, I would encourage you to jump in the description box below and check out my Etsy store, because wow, I made progress on this chicken, but I also make stuff like this wallet, which is now my favorite thing to carry around with me, because I always use my own merchandise. I'll make like 3 things and be like, I'm keeping this one. But this is like everything that I like in a wallet. It's stylish and cute, and it also helps me to travel light. And when I travel light, I like to keep everything separate, like my peas versus my carrots. So I have space for my phone in here, and I also have a cute little pocket for my credit cards and ID so they don't clack around. And I don't have to put my keys inside because I made this with a little detachable wrist strap where you can also hang your key ring. So that's my spiel for my products. Go ahead and check out the link below and see if there's something that I've made that you would enjoy. And if so, please consider supporting me so that I can provide more artistic and high quality products to help people showcase their pride. Thanks for watching, and feel free to comment down below if there is some content that you would like to see, or if there's something that you really related to that I shared today. Just as a reminder, we don't all agree, but we are all members of the same world, and everything comes full circle. Please be kind in your comments to myself, to each other, and ultimately to yourselves. Have a fabulous day and stay creative.